Of Bird and Cage hits hard with a fantastic metal soundtrack and a thought-provoking narrative, but are these enough for you to overlook one glaring flaw in the game? Hey guys, it's Cody with Indie Game Pulse. If you want to find the newest and best indie games and hear genuine reviews from an indie game fanatic like yourself, click subscribe and the notification bell to make sure you don't miss another video. Let's get into it. This game is an interesting one to review because at its core, it is a 2-hour metal album with an interactive first-person story over top, which explores some deep and disturbing themes. So, fair trigger warning here, this game does contain scenes of physical and verbal abuse, substance abuse, and on and off-screen death. This is not a light game. But the first reason you need to play Of Bird and Cage is its insanely creative soundtrack. I understand metal isn't for everyone, I wouldn't even consider myself a metalhead. But what I really appreciate is that this soundtrack was handcrafted to accompany the narrative shown on screen. In fact, you could almost consider it as a narrator at times with how on the nose the lyrics are. As the story was created to perfectly accompany the metal album, each scene and exploration sequence in the game is time-sensitive, shown by the diminishing bar on the bottom of the screen. During these scenes, the soundtrack to me did fade a bit better into the background, but still certain messages would jump to the forefront to make me think as I tried my best to race against the clock and discover solutions before time ran out. And then there are the frantic running sequences, with blood-pumping metal coursing through your ears, your heart actually racing as you scramble along dark alleys and corridors. This is one of the most unique soundtracks I have ever encountered in a game, and it's not simply because it has memorable melodies or themes, but because it accompanies and guides you as you play. Reason number 2 why you need to play Of Bird and Cage is its harrowing narrative, with some gut-wrenching choices to make within a matter of seconds. We'll talk more about that in a bit, but in this modern rendition of Beauty and the Beast, you play as Gitta, a young woman having grown up in an abusive home and now trying to make her way through drug addiction and tumultuous relationships of her own. As you proceed through each scene of the on-screen play and explore the areas in which you find yourself, you will have choices to make. Who to talk to, what activities to partake in. For instance, in the first scene, you can choose to talk to most of the people present and then choose in what way you want to interact with them. When Gitta's dealer shows up, you can choose whether to accept his proposition, and if you choose not to, then you need to decide whether to steal from him and how to go about it. And this is just in the few opening minutes of Gitta's story. As you make more and more decisions, they will come back to help or haunt you, and I started to feel tangled in this web of indecision as I carried on with the game. Each choice started to hold so much weight, not only for the moment, but for what was to come later too, and Of Bird and Cage does an amazing job at not giving you easy, cut-and-dry solutions. Also, within each scene are opportunities to explore, solve problems, and overcome obstacles. In the early stages, these objectives can be simple, like find your belongings in this room before you leave, but as you get further into the story, it will progress to find a way to turn on the power and clear the obstruction while you scramble through an abandoned warehouse. And with the limited time to accomplish everything, again, the race against the clock really started to scramble my brain and make me lose track of what I was doing at times. And so I guarantee that you will not come close to achieving every goal in your first playthrough, which actually leads to my last point, and that is replayability. Within each individual scene, of which there are 15, divided across 3 acts, there are so many choices to make, so many nooks and crannies to explore, even with some collectibles like CDs to gather and birds to free. There is no way to experience every aspect of the game in one playthrough. Some choices will directly mean that others won't be accessible on your current playthrough, and other choices may just make it more difficult to reach later points. And with the exploration aspects and feeling flustered to beat the clock and do everything in such a short time, your second and third playthroughs will probably be much less frantic and a little more focused, allowing you to achieve more scene goals and find more collectibles. And one of the best parts about the game is that you won't get hung up on any aspect if you don't complete each goal or if you can't figure them out. Due to the timed nature of the game, once your time runs out in the scene, then it transitions to a cutscene or chapter break. And for me, this was often for the best because I was absolutely stumped and couldn't make any progress, and the timer actually felt quite merciful to me as a dense player. Long story short, with such an innovative soundtrack and a twisting, heart-rending narrative experience to accompany it, there's only one major reason why you shouldn't play Of Bird & Cage. And that reason is the bad graphics, specifically the character animations. This is a game filled with people, but most times when I looked at them with more than just a passing glance, it really drew me out of the immersion and illusion that Of Bird & Cage builds around you. In the very first bar scene, I walked up to this buff and oddly shaped man, and some text popped up saying, "He's too scary." And I thought, yeah, because his neck cranes out and has possibly been broken and put back together several times, and his tattoos look like they started running in the shower. And then you talk to the sound man, and when you reach a certain distance, he just stares into your soul and won't break eye contact until he risks snapping his neck. And I don't even think his mustache is attached to his face, it just moves very strangely. It kind of looks like he even has 2 layers of a mustache. And this again is only in the first scene. Later, I encountered a baby that almost made me spit out my water that I was drinking with its wide open eyes and overly mature features. And then there's Gita's dad, whose hair looks like it was just plopped on top of his head and not even in the right place, as his sideburns cover half of his ears and his eyebrows look like they were drawn on by a makeup artist after like 10 cups of espresso. Honestly guys, you might think I'm being too hard on the game, but instead of helping to tell the story, or at least just blending into the background, so often, the characters in the game and their absurd mannerisms and movement just completely pulled my mind out of the experience and actually just distracted me. With that being said, if graphics aren't a big deal to you and you want to discover the mind-bending story and choices within Of Bird & Cage, I say go for it. There are gameplay moments that are really memorable to me and some which even made me tear up a bit. But just know that there are some unintentionally funny moments which made me tear up for the wrong reasons too.
I am the beast!
That's gonna do it guys. Thank you very much to my 771 subscribers for your support, and I look forward to getting to know more of you soon. For more top indie game countdowns and reviews, check out the videos on your screen now, and I'll see you on the other side.